Good morning, everybody, and welcome to Wake Up Missoula. I'm your host, Scott Ramp. As you heard from our In the Can intro, that Josh Cook is not here. But, I'm going to be here for you guys, and I'm going to talk about weather, I'm going to talk about some city council, and some other things as well. But first, I'm going to talk a little bit about MCAT news. Starting off for the MCAT news is all about our local live stream that's happening from MCAT.org. It's going to be the Alexander Blewett School of Law at the University of Montana has invited the Montana Supreme Court, which will be doing oral arguments that are taking place now at the Denison Theater. It's live streaming on MCAT.org. The case originally was between the city of Kalispell versus Thomas Selgiver. What started out as a partner family member assault, he was ordered to personally appear for all court proceedings, and he did not appear for his omnibus hearing. Although his attorney did, defense counsel filed a motion for jury trial, arguing that he did not voluntarily, knowingly, or intelligently waive his right to a jury trial, which is part of the Sixth Amendment, and the U.S. Constitution contains no such provisions. So his trial by jury was violated, and that's what this particular hearing is all about. So you guys get to learn a little bit more about the Sixth Amendment and how the Montana Supreme Court is interpreting it in this case. So you'll get to learn all that and more. So let's talk about some news. Also at the University of Montana, a woman was chased by an unknown assailant Monday night. The female student left the Mansfield Library a little after midnight when she encountered the man around Erie Lecture Hall's coffee kiosk. The man is described as 6 feet tall, wearing dark sweatpants and a gray hoodie. Officials are looking for anyone to know who knows any information about the incident, and UM urges students to use GrizWalk if they feel uncomfortable walking alone. GrizWalk is a service that allows escorts through walking or pickup escort for anybody who is out late night at night. So that's what's happening. In state news, drawing on the federally funded 2019 study of coal strip cleanup options, the Northern Plains Resource Council said Wednesday that completely dewatering the power plant's coal ash pond and putting the ash to dry storage would do most to stop groundwater contamination and keep more than 200 people employed. Billings Gazette reported on the future of the Superfund site will utilize employees to clean up the groundwater in coal strip with over 200 million of contaminated water. Drinking water comes from the Yellowstone River, Yep. So anyways, Montana's Department of Environmental Quality, DEQ, asked the coal strip operator Talent Energy to consider excavating ash from the coal strip ponds. Depending on which cleanup options DEQ agrees to, the cost could be projected up to $400 to $700 million. And also, if you haven't already heard, the other day, a man who wanted to join ISIS was caught in Bozeman with an illegal gun registration. An Albanian national who talked about joining ISIS and attacking random people to avenge shootings in a New Zealand mosque in Christchurch, New Zealand. He was arrested at a gun range in Montana, authorities said on Thursday. Faban Alamedi, 21, appeared before the U.S. Judge Thursday on charges of possession of a firearm by unlawful user of a controlled substance and making false statements involving international and domestic terrorism. He was already living in Bozeman at the time of the mosque shooting in Christchurch, New Zealand. He's from New York. He was traveling here through bus. Alamedi decided to go to a local pawn shop to get a gun after the events of Christchurch, New Zealand. Though he had no intention of using acts of terror on specific groups, he did say he would shoot up the hotel that kicked him out for possession of marijuana and was hospitalized March 25th for an apparent acute alcohol intoxication. So far, Alamedi is under police custody to clarify his intentions and follow up with his punishment. National news, opioids have been around America for over 150 years. What started out as a recreational drug that made people fight to the next fix became a major issue in current medicine and prescription drug abuse. NPR did a major story, and in this article I'm going to tell you about many of the options that you guys can learn more information about the history of opioids, recovery, and all that stuff. So here's a couple of book examples that NPR suggests you read if you want to learn more about opioid addiction and opioid in America. Beth Macy wrote the following book, Dope Stick, Dealers, Doctors, and the Drug Company That Addicted America, from distressed small communities to central Appalachia to wealthy suburbs, from desperate cities to once idyllic farm towns. It's a heartbreaking trajectory that illustrates how the national crisis has persisted for so long and become so firmly entrenched. Another book is called The Empire Built on Pain. It's a New Yorker article by Patrick Radin Keefe. It's a privately held company based in Stamford, Connecticut that developed the prescription painkiller oxycodone. So you learn more about oxycodone, which was released in 1995, and it was hailed as a miracle drug, and it is closely related to heroin, and they say it's twice as addictive. Drug Dealing, MD, is a book by Anna Lembecki. In the United States alone, 16,000 people die each year as a result of prescription opioid overdose, but perhaps the most frightening aspect of the prescription drug epidemic is that it's built on well-meaning doctors treating patients with real problems. And so there's a couple other things here and there, but I think this last book is called The Narcotic Farm, The Rise and Fall of America's First Prison for Drug Addicts by Nancy Campbell. From 1935 until 1975, just about every junkie busted for dope went to the narcotic farm, equal parts federal prison, treatment center, farm, and research laboratory. But unfortunately, it was closed down because a lot of the patients and the people there were being tested on, and it violated their human rights. So you might have remembered that the farm made an appearance in the Ray Charles biopic, because a lot of jazz musicians have, among others. Of course, it was basically closed amid scandal over the drug testing program, which involved experiments where inmates were being used as human guinea pigs and rewarded with heroin and cocaine for their efforts. So those are some of the books that you guys can look into just to learn more about the opioid crisis. All right, so that pretty much does it for your new stuff. I skipped weather, but we're going to go right back to weather because the weather is warming up, but it's also going to have a slight chance of thunderstorms happening tonight. So with a high of 61 degrees and a low of 34 degrees, you have a 40 to a 50% chance of rain happening today. Saturday, it's going to be mostly sunny with highs in the 53 degrees, but Saturday night, you might have that 30% chance of showers going into Sunday, where we're going to have a high likelihood of rain into the 80 percentile. You're still going to have 50-degree temperatures through this weekend regardless, so enjoy this warm-up as spring is definitely sprung, as I've probably said many times before on the morning show. So, okay, without further ado, I have some new programs that are going to be airing this weekend on MCAT, and if you want to learn more information, go to mcat.org. But for right now, here's a little taste of what you guys can see this weekend.
So I chose tonight, given the great respect and love I have for Haiti, to talk to you about some of the models we can learn from in the past, and that perhaps to question and challenge, are we doing the right things right? And the title is Henry Street, Hayden, Haiti, and the Golden Rule Jones. How many of you know about Henry Street? I'm curious. Yay, well, I hope. Yay, Lillian. So, okay, so let's go through, is this going to work? Okay, so I think when any of us work anywhere, whether we choose to work in nursing or education, we have to have foundational values of why we are doing this thing. Otherwise, we kind of can go astray or get kind of caught up in minutia.
So I went not because I was interested in the Earth Charter or climate change. I actually didn't know much about what it was. But I went because one of my parishioners, Jay McDaniel, who teaches at Hendrix College in Conway, Arkansas, and is also a process theologian, which I'll talk a little bit about, was very involved in this and wanted me to go. So we went to the Earth Charter, the Faith Summit there, and this is where my conversion happened about the fact that we should be, as faith, people of faith, on the front lines of this debate and this issue. This is where I first came to grips with the fact that the industrialized world, the first world, really has a whole different look at what the earth means and how we use the earth compared to people from other parts of the world.
Intellectual life. There are places which have to do with a culture, an identity, an ethnicity. And all of these things can be considered as the centering place, the sanctuary to which we return to find meaning and importance and value, connection. So we enlarged our idea of hearth by quite a lot. And then we had to define what we meant, and that took us a long time to try and figure out how to define what we thought hearth was. Then after we figured out pretty much what we thought, we had to discover writers who we thought would be important voices in answering questions about what their hearth was and what they considered hearth and why they considered hearth important.
A lot of great programs for you guys out there as well. But let's talk about some other programs that are happening this weekend in the form of movie theatrical releases. Kicking your Thursday off, it's a movie that you might think is like the new big, the next big, the biggest big movie ever, basically a kid who becomes an adult. But they can switch back and forth on will, so it's kind of like bonus, right? So not to be confused with the 1996 movie starring Shaquille O'Neal or the 1991 that has him as a DC superhero. Look it up. It's called Steel. We have a boy who wishes to be big and not only gets it, but gets it in spades. Does anyone say that anymore? Spades? All right, Shazam stars a guy from Chuck and that kid from It. It's an origin story, so batten down the hatches for things like, I'm super strong, but I have to overcome this villain who is not only strong as me, but smarter than me and has more experience. Anyways, there's a motivational speech that gets the kid into gear and defeating the evil. That's always kind of what happens. All right, moving on. Yes, the cemetery is spelled with an S and not a C, except after E. I'm not getting into it. Dad. Anyways, watch this movie based on a book by a guy who is having a resurgence of popularity in an effort to point out that dead is better. Why don't we have to make a movie about when somebody comes back to life and everything's just kind of mundane? It's like, oh, hey, welcome back. It's like, yeah, I was dead for like a minute. And it's like, okay, cool. Maybe like it's the consequences of being more dramatic and like being a daredevil and all that stuff. It's like, yeah, I can always be fixed up and be brought back. So, yeah, that's kind of what that would be an interesting movie for sure. But you won't get that because we always have to deal with the consequences of our actions, because in every movie it's just like whenever we try to do something new, it always ends up bad. It's very interesting to really think about a lot of these dynamics of these movies. Is like sometimes dead is better, and sometimes and like reanimating corpses and all that stuff is always like, oh, you know, it's always going to end badly. So playing Pet Seminary. Okay, Pet Cemetery. Now Plane, and sometimes Plane is better than this movie. All right, so that pretty much does it for your pre-critic stuff. I got a movie for you guys, and it's made by the kids at CSL Porter, and they're going to be talking about, it's basically kind of feels like a reality show, so batten down the hatches. It's time for Flagship Friday.
Okay, I'm here with my kids. There's Timmy.
Mom, you're messing up my photos. Come on.
That's my little daughter. She's so sweet. And there's Grandma. Grandma, say hi.
Hello.
Yeah, so we're having a big,
Grandma, don't look into the light. You'll leave us.
just having our little family time moments. We're gonna go to the retirement home and we're gonna go bring Grandma over there and she's gonna love it. Yeah, you are.
Now where are y'all taking me?
We're going to the retirement home.
No, they make us work there.
But they don't, okay?
Yeah.
They help you.
I read a BuzzFeed article on it.
But they don't make you work, Grandma.
Yes, they do.
But they don't. BuzzFeed is a bunch of buzz. See? Now, look in here. Is there anything dangerous in there?
Yeah, they're gonna make me work.
They are not, though.
They are gonna make
Grandma,
me work.
leave. Timmy, take your juice. I don't want your juice. How many times have I told you?
It's healthy and it's good for you. You don't want to end up like Granny and her old back.
I do, though.
Yeah. and we're drinking that stuff.
Well, won't bring you yet. We'll bring you tomorrow.
Alright, let's go.
Alright, let's go home.
Come on, Timmy, hold on to Grandma's arm.
Come on, Timmy.
This way, Grandma. No, Timmy. Grandma, it's this way. Timmy, come on. I hate my grandchildren and my child. Like, I mean, look at her kids. They're, Alright, anyway, just so y'all know, I'm a superhero. Back in the day of 72, I figured out I was a superhero. I threw on my cape and I ran away from home. Then I met my kid's father. And then he ran away because he found out I was a superhero and didn't like it. I fight crime. So, that's just what we're going to do today.
My name's Timmy, and I just love everyone in my family, especially my grandma. She's the best. My mom's kind of sucky because she makes the worst juice boxes of all time. I don't know how she bears it.
This is my new and improved out juice boxes, but my child hates it.
And my sissy, she's always on her phone, so I don't know what she's like. The reason my name is Timmy, a boy name, is my dad. I don't know what happened to him.
He found out I was a superhero and didn't like it.
But he went away for a while and never came back.
He was amazing, and then he left to go to the gas station to get some ice cream, and he's never came back.
People suck. I have my online friends. They're so perfect. Just look at Alex here. They are so awesome. It's just, they can do everything right.
My hobbies is doing soccer, giving my children juice boxes, and being at their school.
I want the name to be Timmy, and the mom said yes, and then they found out I was a girl, so they still kept my name. Yeah.
I'll go check. What's wrong, my friend?
Kitty's gone!
Oh no!
You're right here! Are you
Well,
sure?
I bet she's there under your bed. I will find him, I bet you.
I promise, I promise.
But just to let you know, we're gonna open it, so everybody be prepared. So I bet you they're gonna give us bullet vests and stuff, and head pieces, and I bet you they'll give us tweezers. Yeah. You want you want.
I do want. Look at Grandma.
Grandma's got
have legs. I have some legs. They're just little.
Grandma's faster than you, and she's got a broken back. She's not gonna get a child till 30.
I can hear ya.
Shush. Alright.
Excuse me, but children under the age of 10 will not be permitted to go.
You guys are so mean to me. And it's just a little young and you gotta just like me forever.
Grandma?
Mom?
Sissy?
La 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 la. La 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 la.
Sweetie?
Hi. Hi, my ears?
Yeah.
They look like sissies.
Follow me on Snapchat, Twitter, Instagram, and pretty much every other device that you can get your hands on. Bye!
Where did she go?
Hey, welcome back. Let's talk about some city council and never talk about that again. What you just saw. All right, so before we get into there, I just want to remind you guys that you can find out more information about Wake Up Missoula and all those videos and all that wonderful content by logging on to wakeupmissoula.wixsite.com/wakeupmissoula. So nice of me to write it out twice. You can go to mcat.org for liking us on Facebook, but you can also go to mcat.org to sign up for our summer camps. Our summer camps are now dropped, and people are signing up, so you want to get in there as soon as possible before the times they all fill up. Most of the camps are happening in July, so you can check all that out by going on to mcat.org. Go to How Do I? MCAT Summer Camps. That's simple. But of course, I want to talk about some city council stuff. And one of the things that the city was talking about was admin and finance. So MRA has been a hot topic, especially with ward member Jesse Ramos speaking against it since the very beginning of TIF funding. One of his platforms of running for the city council ward was to basically kind of curve the spending that the city has been doing, saying that it doesn't really help by increasing the taxes. So anyways, Ellen Buchanan, Missoula Redevelopment Services, talks about urban renewal districts, which has quite a history in Missoula since 1978. There's the OG tax increment financings that created the city of Missoula inputting in creating a certain character for our city and eliminating blight. When they got to the overpass section of the URD and the TIF funding, Jesse Ramos was not convinced with the numbers of people crossing the overpass. Just because there's 300-400 people who average the overpass, that doesn't justify the creation of it, in his opinion.
To me, it doesn't matter how many people use the bridge or not. That's not what my qualms are with the bridge. It has nothing to do with that. My qualms with the bridge are the fact that, for one, it extended that district out another 25 years. So that means until 2040, that district, for their property tax base, the only thing they're contributing to for the schools, the county, the city, for police, fire, the only thing they're contributing to is the property tax base from the year 2000. So what does that mean? That means there's more kids going to school because there's more residential growth. There's more people needing to use the police, the fire. There's more people using the roads. The county still needs money for their increase of services. So basically what that means is that we have to make up for that by raising taxes to everybody else. And I think that has been exemplified last year when we took that TIF remittance, because there was so much money that was captured to the urban renewal district. And in addition to that, another thing that I'm concerned about is that in Montana Code Annotated, Section 7-15-402, 7-15-4203, 7-15-4252, the only thing that TIF money is supposed to be used for is for the elimination of blight. And this whole presentation, I haven't heard hardly anything about the elimination of blight.
Well, maybe we should let them finish their presentation.
Okay, can I finish the bridge part?
You have 30 seconds.
I know it's a different opinion. You don't have to get mad.
No, that's okay.
Okay. I fail to see how that is going to eliminate blight, and I fail to see, I've been to West Baltimore and any other cities that are blighted, how that goes to further the elimination of blight as opposed to something else. And again, the cost isn't $5 million. When you factor in principal and interest, you're looking at north of $7 million. So that's my qualms with the bridge. Want to get that on the record. It had nothing to do with the usage of the bridge. It had to do with the extension of that by another 25 years.
All right, so that was Jesse Ramos. Ellen Buchanan responds to Jesse's comments right now.
If you follow that line of reasoning, then we would not have built any of the trails that we have in Missoula. And we've got absolute evidence of what kind of private investment the construction of, for instance, the Riverfront Trail 4 blocks from here created on Front Street. And people invest along trails. This is part of the trail system. And people will invest in those neighborhoods more heavily now that they're connected to Fort Missoula Regional Park and the amenities that they were absolutely separated from before. So I would disagree that this does not have anything to do with elimination of blight.
All right, so Gwen Jones gets a little more in depth with this and talks a little bit more about the history, about urban renewal districts, about how this has helped leverage the city to create the city as we know it today.
There's all sorts of discussion that happens in this community regarding the fact that this is freezing part of the tax base for a period of time while there's TIF going into other projects. But first of all, there's a very complex definition of blight that is far more than what people assume. It's quite long in our Montana Annotated Code. Secondly, this money goes to leverage private investment that creates more income. Secondly, it goes to create quality of life improvements in our town that we need and that the majority of people want. And third, it goes to creating, I would classify them as survival issues, affordable housing. A couple of weeks ago, the Missoulian editorial gave huckleberries to the MRA because of money that was put into the YWCA new structure on 3rd Avenue that will help create affordable housing for families. We do not have any other tool in this community to do that. Other states, other communities, many of them have many more tools. In Montana, we don't. This is it. So we can have all of these discussions about whether or not it's a good thing, but we have no other tools, and I think there is strong community support for creating these districts that part of it goes to private leverage, but it also gives us the tool and flexibility to do some really crucial things in our community that we would not be doing otherwise, and we would live in a very different place otherwise. So I just want.
All right, so that was Gwen Jones. I'm going to throw it over to the last comment, which is Heather Harp, who chaired this meeting, who talks more about Missoula's past and how the efforts of Old City Council was forward-thinking.
Successful cities are intentional. And that's what happened 4 decades ago. We had a super story with our first URD. We had half of the buildings downtown were boarded up, literally. We had unemployment that ran 30%. Our residential openings were actually 30%. Manufactured homes had vacancy rates of 50%. It was a very different Missoula back in those times. We took a leap of faith back then to set Missoula on a different trajectory than a lot of other dying communities around this country. That does not change. We must continue to be intentional, and your board is tasked with that. So please send that message back to the board that we continue to hold you and the staff of the MRA accountable to making sure that we remain intentional and viable and energized.
All right, so that was Heather Harp, and thus ends the admin and finance. If you're interested in where your tax dollars go, you can watch this meeting, and it tells you exactly the amount of money each of the urban and rural districts are. But so far, I kind of harped on the overpass over Reserve Street. There's a lot more in terms of many other URDs and their expiration date, so you guys can find out more information about that by going to the City of Missoula's website, which I'll get to after I get past the Budget Committee meeting. So money is always on the topic, and as the new year starts going into fruition, they start talking about the fiscal year 2020. The 2019 budget was passed last August, I believe, and they usually start doing budget committees and trying to figure out what the next year's annual budget is. And so this one, they're talking about the fiscal year 2020 conservation and stewardship of open land space. 2004, the open space bond passed. Then they had a re-up a couple of years ago, which was approved. So they're going to continue this. And one of the things that they're trying to do is they're trying to have more equipment to buy, because a lot of times the open space bond, and Morgan Valiant, who is with this conservation lands mill levy budget, is figuring out ways to hire more people and have more jobs positioned that can be utilized year-round, and not necessarily, a lot of times the open space and stewardship stuff is, building trails, cleanups on the lands, clean up some graffiti, and just trying to make paths for people to stay on the beaten path. Part of this meeting talks about staff that would use this time of snow removal to hazardous brush and trail construction. So they're trying to figure out how many different departments can kind of work annually, year-round. So Morgan Valiant talks about the jobs and positions that they kind of want to initialize with this new fiscal year budget.
That does all the safety training for our operations team. It's been incredibly important and has really dropped our mod factor within the department. That person is only around for 30 or 32 hours a week. We'd like to bring that person to 40 because we're adding a bunch of extra staff. We've needed that person at 40 for a while. Having administrative support at 12 months, this would be a new position that would help myself, would also help the open space acquisitions program, so Elizabeth Erickson, she doesn't have administrative support, and our projects team. As you know, through our open space bond, we're going to have a bunch of capital projects that are also tied to that. And so the ability to do all that grant tracking to help do contracts is going to be essential.
And Morgan Valiant has been praised by the City Council as basically matching a lot of the dollars from the open spawn mill levy through also working with grants to raise money and figuring out how to increase seasonal workers, and the more that they do, and they're figuring out ways to help save money. So a lot of times they, in the last couple of meetings where they give an update of what they're doing with the open space bonds and stewardship deals, is that they're clearing some brush for the fire season, which I'll talk about in the joint City Council Community Missoula County Commissioners joint meeting, in which they talked about fire safety. I'm sure you probably already read in the Missoulian, but I'll talk a little bit more about that. Of course, as you saw on the graph, that graph kind of shows you it's like a flow chart of all the jobs and which connected like to seasonal to more administrative type jobs. And so Morgan goes into planning for seasonal workers and their training right now.
What I would like to do is to actually start flying some of these positions in May so that we can have someone hired so that when July 1st comes around, those new positions that you saw could start. And they would know that they have a job. We could get them in, we get them trained. And that is absolutely critical when you're working on these natural areas where the majority of the work we do is very seasonal.
All right, so let's talk some John DeBari. John DeBari, he's always been a part of conservation and the open space bond, and this is what he had to say in response to Morgan's efforts.
For the work that you've put into thinking about it, this was something that I strongly supported as a part of getting put on the ballot and the campaign around this, because I think it'll provide us sort of the long-awaited opportunity to care for the lands that we've made an investment in and that we have made a real commitment to, not just in terms of recreation, but from a conservation standpoint. And that's really my emphasis in all of this, that we are thoughtful stewards of this land from a conservation standpoint, and I really appreciate your interest in making that happen and using this money thoughtfully to make that happen.
Yep. All right, so in conclusion to this budget committee meeting, open space bond passed in 2004, and with what started out as a way to clear noxious weeds on the M, because I remember doing some volunteer work when I was a kid, and what basically it was is that they get a couple kids from camps and whatnot, and they just take them up to the M and we clear brush, and we try to like block non-natural paths, like gives people like the switchbacks, and then people want to like go through up the middle. And so something that kind of like started off that kind of small, kind of really expanded and created a way for people to really just be able to experience nature while at the same time not necessarily interfering or kind of like walking in certain areas that would disrupt the natural environment. So so the budget committee approved the budget to allow the fiscal year 2020 conservation and stewardship of open lands, which will be used to buy more equipment, have more full-time positions, and be able to retain and hire new positions, along with new equipment that will help these efforts in future stewardships of the open space that are constantly being purchased through the City of Missoula's open space bond mill levy. All right, so the next meeting that was going on is the joint committee of the whole. City Council and County Commissioners joined forces the other day to talk about many things, but especially the fire season. Developed in conjunction with the U.S. Forest Service Fire Science Laboratory and University of Montana fire researchers, it has analyzed the threat of wildfire to Missoula Valley and identified ways to make the situation better. Prescribed burning and thinning both reduces the chance of catastrophic fire and produces less unhealthy healthy smoke for a local airshed. The plan analysis shows about 177,000 acres around the Missoula urban area is a high or very high risk of wildfire. So far, they are working towards a solution, but are always looking for public involvement and public input. For more information on these meetings and more, you can go to the City of Missoula's website, ci.missoula.mt.us. All right, guys, now it's time for a little bit of First Friday stuff. It is Friday and is the first Friday of the month, so I'm going to be talking to you guys about some of the things that you guys can be doing for First Friday, kicking off with the craft text paper, and this is going to be at the Confident Stitch. Craft text is a hybrid of paper and fabric with leather-like look. It demonstrates some tips and tricks for working with the interesting medium. So this is going to be happening for your First Friday. They'll have exhibits, they'll have some materials there, so it's a good opportunity to get involved with craft text paper. And the next, oh, sorry, my mouse is acting funny. All right, so we have a speaker. It's John Yao, who will be at the Missoula Art Museum. And he's going to be talking about, oh, wow. Okay, so anyways, what it says on the website says, experience MAM engage in exhibitions for free on the first Friday of each month from 5 to 8 p.m. Enjoy a no-host bar, great music, and unique art viewing experiences that support with the support of the Missoulian and KBGA. The first Friday of April for a special event at the MAM. It's a poetry reading by John Yao. It starts at 8:30 p.m. It's $5 for adults and students, and members of the Missoula Art Museum get in free. So that's what happened, is John Yao poetry. We have a photo show. It's called Stillness by Marcel Hauser. It's going to be at the Dram Shop. Creative landscape and wildfire images. Emphasize on simple, blurred, or even colored backgrounds that make the main topic stand out. Then we got at the Frontier Space. This is John Hedges' exhibition. Prudence. Oh, wow. They totally misspelled a lot of words right there. So it's the show features several oil paintings, a video piece, and a digital print that works through a varied of media approach. All explore the science of experiment in art. Then we got the Covell Kits and Taylor. This is going to be at Lake Missoula Tea Company. They're going to be showing some of their clay potted potters, teacups, and all and more. You can meet these artists, and they chat about their beautiful handmade teaware. Jeff Taylor and friends will be serenading you guys with some talented violin and vocals, and they'll provide free tea as well at the Lake Missoula Tea Company. We have Memory Home. It's a First Friday art show. This is mixed media collage art on book covers. This is going to be live music by Fuels, F-U-U-L-L-S, and the band starts at 7 p.m., but it's going to be at La Petite Autre. The next one we got is The Outrageous Women. It's going to be at the Artist Shop by Michelle Pace, and this is going to be at the Artist Shop. Acrylic portraits of the show the beauty of the individual. So it's going to be at the Artist Shop. Then we got Out of This World. First Friday, Berkshire Hathaway Home Services hosts a bunch of arts. This time they're going to be hosting the Artists of Opportunity Incorporated. It's a program that does an amazing job providing the creative tools and the platform for the talented artists to create masterpieces. The word is out on their community. A show is not to be missed. This is from 8 to 5 p.m. at Berkshire Hathaway. And then there's an open house art show. So this is happening in our building here at MCAT 500 North Higgins. This is the Osel Sheng Feng Ling. They're opening the doors for the first Friday on the 5th. Help bring some qualified Mahayans, Buddhist teachers to the Missoula in 2019. They'll have free tea and snacks and several digital Thankas for sale by the own residential Thanka painter, director Bob Jacobson. The care Bob puts into these traditional Tibetan paintings is remarkable, and they are truly one of a kind. They will be have photo prints for sale for the members of Ed and Bill. Swing by for your artwork and say hello. And it's going to be in the 500 North Higgins building. So if you can go through the front entrance, I think it's upstairs to your left, and you can't miss it. So it's cool. It's in our building, so you can't miss it. Light on the Light on Land oil paintings, and Western landscape paintings by Teresa Garland Warner and Elaine Weege. Gallery 709 Montana Art Frame presents the Light on the Land Western landscape oil paintings by those artists. The vast of vistas and They use the palette knife to create amazing color and light effects. The exhibit runs all of April, and the first Friday they're going to be opening and premiering this gallery, and it's going to be happening from 5 to 9 tonight. Up next, we got Alleys and Stolen Portraits, first Friday with B. Martinez. Join the Bike Doctor and B. Martinez for a night of art and silly business and beer with Alleys and Stolen Portraits. And if you can name all 7 locations in the Missoula alleyways, you'll be entered to win a drawing and win a large, weird version of Jay's Upstairs. And then we got another one. It's art. It's going to be an art auction. Theo Ellsworth art is being featured at the Clay Studio of Missoula. Its Potskep is silent, online, and live auction fundraising for the help sustain the Clay Studio of Missoula. The preview exhibition will feature over 6 dozen pot sketches and 2 dozen live auction ceramic works. Bidding begins on silent auction works at the preview and is free and open to the public. All right, we got the last one for you guys. Oh. That's not it. There we go. Sorry about that. That was last week's pre-critic. Boom. My bad. All right. So that pretty much does it for you guys. I want to thank you guys for joining me for all your art needs and what's happening in Missoula. I have a dance video for you guys. So without further ado, here's a bunch of us weirdos dancing just before the St. Patrick's Day parade. So that's just a little taste for you guys. You can watch the full 20-minute meeting on MCAT's, Graham Martin's page. I'll post it on MCAT's Facebook page where you can watch the whole the whole parade from behind the scenes of the parade, from like within the parade of the St. Patrick's Day parade. I said parade like 500 times. All right, events. There are a lot of things happening. First Friday kind of took care of most of your Friday night events, but kicking things off is the student project presentations. It's fourth grade is going to be a fourth grade class is going to be at the University of Montana Education Building, room 203. It's the book-shaped building. It's like pretty much right across from the Media Arts building. Helena School District peak gifted and talented fourth graders students will give a 3 to 5 minute independent study presentations on topics of their choice within the theme of accepting and overcoming challenges. So the first group pretty much is over, but they're going to do another group from noon to 1 p.m. today. And since we're required to select a topic pertaining to a challenge, social, emotional, physical, and intellectual study. So you can learn all about this, and it's going to be at the University of Montana Education Building, room 203. Rummage sale, the First Presbyterian Church. This is the annual rummage sale. It's spring cleaning time. There's going to be a lot of rummage sales, so let's kick things off with a rummage sale that's happening at the First Presbyterian Church. That's happening today until about noon. Price sale from 1 to 3. It's going to have a bag sale, so it might be like a mystery bag where you buy some stuff, but I don't know. Don't quote me on that. So photo is from last year. If you check it out on MissoulaEvents.net, sales fills huge fellowship hall. This year they have an extra whole room full of children's items. Tiny Tales and Story Time, speaking of children, if there's a great way for kids to get involved with reading, learn story time, finger plays, and all that stuff at the Missoula Public Library starting at 10:30. They do it most days at the Missoula Public Library, but it's a great way to get your kids engaged in reading just as they're going into school. Yarns and Watercolor, if you're interested in doing that every single Friday at noon, Missoula Public Library hosts a Yarns and Watercolor. One is watercolor, one is yarns. You get to choose one or the other, or both. But also, if you are interested in more playing games, Missoula Senior Center is the place to be for some cribbage and bridge at around noonish. Teen Writers Group, improve your writing skills and get some positive critique feedback at the Teen Writers Group every Friday after school at around 3:30 p.m. at the MPL. And then this one's pretty important too, because this is part of the First Friday events, but I didn't get a chance to have a over the shoulder because then provide a picture. Join this Child Development Center for the annual Autism Acceptance. Celebrate on First Friday at the downtown Missoula. They're celebrating the wonderful friends, family, and classmates and neighbors with autism add to our community, and it's going to be at the MSO Hub starting at 5 p.m. tonight. If you're interested in, well, it might be a little rainy outside, but they're doing a planetarium show moving through time and space. One is at 6 p.m. and one at 7:30 p.m. April 5th. And it's going to be at the University of Montana. YMCA Parents Night Out. It is First Friday, and YMCA is helping the parents get some alone time away from the kids. This is $27 per child, and it's $15 for an additional child. And if you're a Family Y membership, it's $21 and then $10 for every additional child, like siblings and whatnot. So this is like a babysitting thing. It happens from about 6 to 10 p.m. They got family fun time from about 3:30 to 5, but then you can kind of keep your kids at the YMCA as you go off and do First Friday stuff from 6 to 10 p.m. And it's a good way and good opportunity for trained Y counselors, supervised theme crafts, active game options, and kid-friendly movie for children's age 4 to 11. Children 3 and younger have a chance to spend the evening with the Child Watch Center. Registration is required. And that pretty much does it for your Friday events. I'm going to skip on over and do some Saturday events. We don't have an art clip for you guys because there's a bunch of new art that is just dropping in Missoula, so we don't have an art clip to show you until a little bit later. So Saturday, Basic Home Plumbing, the Lifelong Learning Center teaches you how to plumb. Why not? You can save money on plumbing. Winter markets are from, it's the Lifelong Learning Center. You can find out more information by going on to the Missoula Lifelong Learning Center. Winter markets, you guys can go to the Missoula Senior Center. It's the best place to do some winter market fun. They open up their basement thrift store, and they have a bunch of booths and stuff, so people selling all sorts of knickknacks, breads, and a bunch of other things that you guys can't get during the farmers market season. So winter market pretty much every single Saturday from 8 to 1 p.m. to ease those woes. Open call for background actors. Missoula Public Library is hosting people to do some background acting works for feature film projects, and is a paid background extra work, and it's free and no hidden fee charges of any kind, and that's going to be happening at 10 a.m. If you're curious, just show up and be like, hey, I'm looking for that background actor. So, just have people walk behind, and they just kind of stand there and not look at the camera. That's kind of like that's what it means to be an extra in a movie. So you just kind of stand there and not look at the camera. Superhero Run, Fort Missoula Regional Park. They're going to start gearing things up for a lot of fundraising and great events. Every child needs a hero, but abused and neglected children need a superhero. Court-appointed special advocates, CASA of Missoula, volunteers exist to be an abused or neglected child superhero. CASA volunteers are members of the community who are trained and supported to advocate the best intentions of children until they reside in a safe, permanent home. Trucker Kids at Travelers Rest, Archaeology Rocks, starting at 11 a.m. at the Travelers Rest every Saturday from 11 to 12. They always have some kind of thing that teaches kids about the outdoor world and living out into the wilds and all that stuff, but they're talking about archaeology rocks. So you get to learn about rocks and be like, hey, you know that rock right there? That's 1 billion years old. It's like, what? And then, just kind of like tell those kids how old some of those rocks are. And they always get a kick out of that. It's always fun. You can RSVP via email, or the Travelers Rest State Park Facebook page is greatly appreciated just to know who is showing up, because a lot of times if nobody shows up, they have no point in doing the class. So it's kind of like a drop-in, and it's usually a free educational resource for a lot of kids. Intro into Permaculture Workshop Part 1. Missoula Urban Demonstration Project is doing classes and workshops to help From 1 to 4 p.m. is the first part of the permaculture design series. This first workshop is an introduction to design principles of permaculture, which are centered around whole system thinking and used for creating and implementing solutions for human habitats for observing and the patterning and resilience found in nature. So you get to basically kind of plant and learn how to plant things that kind of grow on their own and have low maintenance in terms of taking care of them. So permaculture is a good way, and through understanding and utilizing these practices, students can learn how to work with nature and with the rhythm of seasonal cycles in order to create beautiful, diverse, sustainable gardens, homes, and communities. MUD members, it's $10, and for non-members, it's $20, and it's going to be at the MUD, which is next to Home Resource, just off of Wyoming Street, so you guys can check that out. MCAT Saturday Drop-ins every Saturday from 1 to 5 p.m. It is a great opportunity for kids to get involved with some stop animation, stay inside. It is going to rain on Saturday, partly on Saturday, but you never know. Some kids really like doing some stop animation, but also we also do some fun movie making tools, tips and trips, and we teach them about editing, and it's all about media, all at MCAT from 1 to 5 p.m. every Saturday until Memorial Day weekend. So the end of May is our last chance. Sunday, Missoula Strikers Spring Recreational League. I'm just kind of like breezing through all this stuff, but Missoula Strikers Spring Recreation League for Missoula Regional Park. Like I said, for Missoula Regional Park is doing a whole bunch of things happening. Strikers Recreational Program. Micro Strikers began more than 30 years ago with a handful of volunteers and a small group of energetic children. Today, Missoula Strikers is considered to be one of the best soccer clubs in Montana, hosting recreation teams from the U4, U12 age groups. The recreation teams are coached by volunteers, and every year they give hundreds of children a fun place to learn and play. Micro soccer is not a place on winning, but on instruction, not just soccer, but the importance of life skills. And that happens at 11 a.m. at the Fort Missoula Regional Park. Family Clay Workshop, and I think this is a good way for families to come together and work on a project together. It is the Clay Studio of Missoula, and they're doing it Sunday, April 7th. They're doing it Sunday, May 5th. And this is happening from 2 to 5 p.m. at the Family Clay Studio. Mother's Day Workshop, they're doing a special Sunday on May 12th, June 2nd, July 7th. So it seems like it's every first Sunday of the month until August. And it's $40 total for one adult. Includes clay, glazing, and firings. Additional adults and children are welcome per family for $20 per individual. So if you bring the base price is $40, every additional person is like $20. So it's just to basically offset the cost for materials. Metal smithing class, which is on Arts Community Center. Join Amber Lynn Walker of Made by Warren Frame on a metal smithing adventure. Each 3-hour metal smithing classes, this is from 6 to 9 p.m., and learn design basics, how to stamp and create textures with a hammer, and of course, safety tips because you're metal smithing. The students will leave class on their own handcrafted jewelry piece to give as a gift or keep for themselves. And I think this is pretty funny because this is going to be a special event that's happening at the Badlander. This is for 21 and up, just so you guys know. Starting at 9 p.m., the Badlander is doing an emo night all night long. So if you're interested in that kind of self-loathing, sad, emo music, then or you're like a child of the 90s. That's basically the perfect example of the 90s music. Have you listened to 90s music? It's very depressing. Anyways, so Dead Hipster presents Emo Night in Missoula starting at 9 p.m. on Sunday night. So if you want more information about this and more, you can log on to MissoulaEvents.net. MissoulaEvents.net. Hey, what's happening in Missoula? Why don't you just go to MissoulaEvents.net? You can find out everything that's happening in Missoula, from events to causes to government meetings and more by going to MissoulaEvents.net. All right, so that pretty much does it for my morning show. I want to thank you guys for joining me this morning, and I hope you guys have a wonderful weekend. Saturday portion of the day when the sun is shining, it's going to be nice and sunny, so you might get a chance to be out and about. It is good sweater weather. It's going to be around 50 degrees, and then by that night, by Sunday, it's going to start raining like crazy, so you never know what's going to happen. It might even rain a little bit sooner because a lot of those weather patterns have a tendency to blow the storm a little bit faster through the valley of Missoula, so you might want to check on all that. And I know that through just living in Missoula my whole life. All right. I'm done. Thank you for joining me, and for Wake Up Missoula, I'm Scott Rath.